Now we are just looking at the variables that we defined in the previous lecture. So in this particular example, you can see like we defined a few variables, and we can actually see the type also. So let me do one thing, like I'm including one more cell in between to show you the type. So I'm adding a cell here using shortcut A, and right now what I'm doing, I'm re-executing these cells. You can see the numbering. So these numberings actually indicate the order in which I executed these cells. So right now I'm re-executing this one, and you can see I have this 7 because sixth one was this one. Now this one is 8th one and this one is 9th one. So I executed all these 3 cells again, and I want to show you the type of A. So the type of A is str. And what I will do, I will split this cell using the same option that I was showing earlier, and this is now A5, and I will execute this. So I just had A, as this is a variable demo, and now I have A5, and I'm adding another cell here, and I will check the type of A, and it is int. So can you see right now, I initialized A to a string and it was showing me type is string. But when I initialize A to 5, then the type is int. So that means based on the content of the variable, the type is changing, and I don't have to explicitly define the type when I am defining the variable. This is another important feature of Python, which is called dynamic typing. So right now I am able to achieve it so easily in Python, but in other programming languages it is really difficult. I need to go back and change the type, and it will not be able to like assign without changing the type. So it will give a lot of issues, but in Python it is so easy. So I wanted to show you that. So now apart from that, let's get started with the variables, and we will just remove these things and then we'll start from here. So first of all, when we talk about variables, there are multiple types of variables in Python. So on a very high level, I want to talk about few things. So I will be talking about basic types, and I will be also talking about the compound types. So what I will be doing, I will be adding another cell, and I will be talking about compound types. So this is our focus right now, and in basic types I will specifically be talking about integers, and I will be talking about floats, and we have booleans, and we have strings. So these 4 I will be talking about. And compound types, I will be talking about lists, I'll be talking about tuples, I'll be talking about sets, and I will be talking about frozen set, and then I will be talking about dictionaries. So these are the things that I will be discussing. So let's get started with the basic types, and later on we will come to the compound types also. So in the basic types, I am actually referring to the integer and string that we just saw. So we have seen like a B will be of type string and C will be of type string again, but A type has been changed to integer. Now I am defining a variable A underscore or A underscore 2 equals to 9. When I do that, it's working fine, no problem. But if I do the 2 underscore A equals to 9, then it gives me error, because you cannot define variables starting with initial digit. So initial letter is okay. This is a letter. Initial letter is okay, but you cannot have digit. And also your variable names should have letters, should have numbers, should have underscores. It's fine, but no other special character. If I try to change this A underscore 2, instead of that, if I do A@2, then it will give error again. So these are the things that I wanted to highlight before we actually start exploring the basic types. This is more related to the variables. So that's why I started with introduction to Python variables, and this is a related topic. So that's why we are covering both the things together. So hope you got the idea. Like we have this restriction, and there are some keywords which are restricted like in other programming languages also. So for example, if I try to define variable with class, then it will be a problem, right? So if I say this, then it will give an error. So these are reserved keywords that we should not be using for the variable names. Okay, so this is fine, like a very basic thing, but you should know that is important, like variables in Python. So you will also see like there are cases where we are defining the class names, then initial letter should be in caps, and lowercase is usually preferred for the instance types. So these are few things that you can consider. But right now I think we can get started with some interesting things in Python. So I will start writing maybe some basic formulas. I'm just thinking like, why not we start with a very basic formula of in converting our temperature from degree Celsius to degree Fahrenheit. So let's say I have a temperature in Celsius. So when I am having a temperature in Celsius, maybe 20 degrees Celsius, so I will include more cells here, and I will start converting this into temperature in Fahrenheit. So let's say temperature in Fahrenheit equals to, I'm just having 9 divided by 5 multiplied by, we have temperature in Celsius. So what I did, I just use a tab key. So when I use tab key, then it will automatically suggest me all the variables which are in scope. So I'm actually choosing the Celsius, and then I'm also doing one more thing. I'm using 9.0 so that it is float division, and then I'm adding 32 here, and then I will be running this, and then what I will be doing, temp Fahrenheit, I will be printing that. So you can see we got the value temperature in Fahrenheit, and when I see the type of temperature in Fahrenheit, so then it will be like float. So hope this is fine. Like the temperature in Celsius is integer, and this one is now float. So you can typecast this into a value which is like Fahrenheit in like rounded off. Let's say I'm giving another name, rounded off. So I'm just defining int, and then you can say temp Fahrenheit, and then if I run it, I can just quickly print it, and we can see we got 68. So I'm able to typecast. So using int, or maybe you can use float, or you can use string, depending on what you are doing. But right now we are doing this conversion. I'm converting float into integer, so I got this. So I hope this is fine, like very basic thing. So how do we convert into int value from float, right? So similarly, there are other interesting cases, like in case you want to try one thing, like you want to, let's say we have temperature in Fahrenheit, and this temperature in Fahrenheit is still 68.0, right? So I did not modify that. So what I want to do is, like, I want to maybe start looking into how do we basically convert a string into, let's say I do one thing, like I first of all convert this into a string, temperature in Fahrenheit, which is like now a string, let's say str, and when I run it and I print it, then what do I get? I get a string, right? And if you want to see the type, you can quickly see the type also. The type is str. So I just converted my data into string. Now let's say I use this and I try to do this conversion, then it will give me error that this conversion is not allowed. The reason is the data within the string is a float. So if you do convert this to float, then it will work fine. So if I just change it to float, then it works fine. But if you try to convert something which is a string, but actually it is like a string containing a float, and you are trying to typecast into int, so that means you are taking two steps. First step is string to float and float to int. So you are trying to take two steps in the single step. So it will not allow that. So Python will not allow that. Python will allow if you do float conversion, normal float conversion. So this is another thing that you need to take care, right? So this is important. Like one step is fine, but you cannot take these two steps together, right? So apart from that, let's say we have a sensor which was sending the temperature reading. So I'm checking like sensor enabled or not, right? Sensor enabled. So if I do true like this, then if I run it, then it will give me error because it will expect true to be a variable, So it's not actually a proper boolean. So if you want this to be assigned like a boolean, then you need to use T in the caps. So you will be running like this, and then you will be doing like this. So you got true here. So I want to specifically compare these two things right now. So this true is very much different from this true. So that's why if you do like this type of this, then you will see it is boolean. This is not boolean. This is not even like a statement which will run. It will give error, right? So it will throw error. So that's why please be careful whenever you are using true or false. Then you have to use like this, and then this is a valid statement. It worked very well. And if you just copy this and paste it here and run it here, then it is bool, right? So hope this is fine. Not very difficult to understand, I believe. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on the discussion forum. So I hope this is fine. Let's get to the next point. And this next point is like we are assigning like a value to a variable. So let's say a variable name is my data1, and this one is my data2, and I'm assigning 5. It is a very valid statement in Python. It is not a problem. So it works very well. So I just executed, it worked well. So now I want to show you what is the ID of this my data and what is the ID of this particular my data2. So ID is actually referring to memory location, like exact memory location of the object. So you can see right now the memory location is exactly same when you are assigning. So these two variables are actually pointing to the same memory location. So this is very important thing to understand, like ID, where this particular object is pointing in the memory. So right now both are actually referring to the same object in the memory. So if we modify something, let's say we have 8, and if I show you the ID for my data1, then you will see the ID has changed. So it clearly shows that the variables are immutable here, specifically integer variables that we are using, because it is in int. So if you are having this memory location and you are changing it to something else, then the location is changing in the memory. That means it is immutable. You cannot update the same memory location. So I hope you got the idea behind the basic types. And after this, like, we will start exploring the string type, and we will start understanding like how do we work with string type, and how do we like manipulate our strings, how do we apply some user defined functions. So that will be like a very detailed discussion, and that will be a separate discussion. But for the time being, I believe you got the idea behind at least some of the basic types, like int, float, bool. Now we will move on to the string type in the next lecture.